It's fair to say that there are only so many movies our brains can remember at any given time, and so it's common for like-minded films to blur together in our memories. But sometimes two films in particular become confused in our minds due to a premise that's shockingly similar, whether a result of pure coincidence or something a little more suspicious. Twin films are a significant phenomenon in the world of cinema, whereby two similar projects enter production in quick succession, often resulting in them both racing to hit the big screen first. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Whatculture, here with 10 copycat movies that confused everyone. Number 10, No Strings Attached and Friends with Benefits. If you can tell these two 2011 rom-coms apart, give yourself a firm pat on the back. Released just 6 months apart, No Strings Attached and Friends with Benefits both follow two sets of young, attractive people who enter into no-strings sexual relationships without any interest in committed romance. Inevitably, feelings abound. To make matters more complicated, the films star Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis, respectively, who, in addition to looking alike, co-starred together in Black Swan the year prior, while their romantic partners are played by the not that dissimilar Ashton Kutcher and Justin Timberlake. Tellingly, No Strings Attached was originally written under the title Friends with Benefits, but changed after the producers realised a rival project was in production. Ultimately, both films scored mixed reviews from critics, but performed well at the box office, yet are ultimately such beige, forgettable rom-coms based on a similar premise that it's extremely difficult to tell them apart without a quick Google search. Number 9, Dantes Peak and Volcano. Released less than 3 months apart in 1997, Dantes Peak and Volcano both attempted to take a bite out of the big-budget disaster movie pie with a similar focus on cataclysmic volcanic eruptions. To be completely fair to the pair, their settings are at least markedly different. Dantes Peak takes place in the titular small town as it becomes consumed by a formerly dormant volcano, while Volcano offers up the more patently ridiculous premise of a volcano erupting out of nowhere in downtown Los Angeles. Yet you'll be hard-pressed to find many people who remember them as anything other than the Volcano films, or can differentiate them beyond a single ridiculous scene each. Dantes Peak's Grandma Ruth basically getting herself killed mere feet from safety, and Volcano's self-sacrificial foreman throwing himself in the lava to save a colleague. Ultimately, each film tanked at the box office amid dubious reviews, and which one vibes with you more is basically a flip of a coin. They're both dumb, amusingly trashy disaster flicks, if not quite as inane as a Roland Emmerich joint. Number 8, Exorcist: The Beginning and Dominion prequel to The Exorcist. Within a 9-month period from the summer of 2004 to the spring of 2005, 2 prequels to The Exorcist were released in what remains one of the most head-scratching wastes of $80 million you're ever likely to see. You see, legendary director Paul Schrader was originally hired to direct Exorcist: The Beginning, but after producers were unsatisfied with the footage he turned in, Rennie Harlan was then brought in to basically reshoot the entire movie. This caused The Beginning's budget to balloon to $50 million, and when it tanked both critically and commercially, production company Morgan Creek gave Schrader a pathetic $35,000 to complete post-production on his own $30 million version of the movie. And so, Schrader's film was repackaged as Dominion prequel to The Exorcist, which released the next year to more mixed negative reviews, though grossed just $251,495 worldwide. Given that the two films are loose variations on the same story and both star Stellan Skarsgård as a young version of Father Merrin, they basically blur together into an imperceptible sludge. Number 7, Eon Flux and Ultraviolet. Released in December 2005 and March 2006 respectively, Eon Flux and Ultraviolet both starred raven-haired athletic actresses in wildly overbaked style-over-substance sci-fi action movies, touting convoluted plots and, well, not much else. It sure didn't help that both films were marketed with near-identical posters, which cast their stars against grim-looking teal-toned cityscapes. But in terms of their narratives, they both also revolve around an impractically clothed female soldier attempting to dismantle a cartoonishly evil dystopian authority. To be fair to Eon Flux, it just barely manages to be watchable compared to Ultraviolet, which is surely one of the most visually garish films of the last 20 years. Nevertheless, neither does much at all to distinguish itself from the other. Much good, anyway, and in the end, both were eviscerated by critics while audiences also kept well away. Number 6, Unfriended and Friend Request. There's been a glut of social media-themed horror films released in recent years, and given how many of them have infuriatingly similar names, it can be tough to keep up. Released first in 2015, Unfriended was one of the earliest entries into the growing shared screen subgenre, in which the entire movie takes place on a computer screen, as a group of high schoolers find themselves preyed upon by a dead fellow pupil. Hitting screens a year later was Friend Request, similarly revolving around a gang of teens who are systematically killed off by a supernaturally inclined classmate, albeit without the shared screen gimmick. To make matters even more confusing, Friend Request was also released internationally under the title Unfriend, likely in an attempt to ride the former's coattails. It clearly didn't work, as though Unfriended was a huge commercial success relative to its budget and scored solid reviews, Friend Request barely recouped its budget and was largely panned by critics. Number 5. Mission to Mars and Red Planet. Both Mission to Mars and Red Planet, released 8 months apart, focus on an ensemble cast of actors heading to Mars to complete a life-or-death mission. The former was helmed by legendary filmmaker Brian De Palma, while the latter was the first and only feature from a thoroughly in-over-his-head Anthony Hoffman. While both films received scattered, measured praise for their visual effects and casts, both were also widely panned by critics and cratered at the box office, which, with their $110 million and $80 million budgets respectively, forced the studios to take a big bath. Despite all that money spent, there's desperately little to set these two films apart, which might be the most embarrassing thing of all, really. Though it's far more of a lower-budget action schlockfest, you could also throw in John Carpenter's risible Ghosts of Mars to make it a hat-trick. Number 4. The Shadow and the Phantom. More power to you if you can recall which of these two movies starred Alec Baldwin and which starred Billy Zane. Released in the summers of 1994 and 1996, The Shadow and the Phantom are both superhero movies adapted from 1930s pulp fiction figures, focusing on the titular heroes as they battle megalomaniacal evil forces in New York City, starring the strikingly similar Baldwin and Zane, respectively. Though the movies are different enough tonally, The Shadow is grittier and more noir-inspired, while The Phantom strikes a far goofier note. Both tackled similar material with such little fanfare that they basically ended up fused together in the cultural consciousness of movie-going audiences. Both movies received wildly mixed reviews from critics and flopped at the box office, though with its mere $17.3 million gross against a $45 million budget, The Phantom was far more of a bomb than its genre brother. Number 3. The Bounty Hunter and Killers. The Bounty Hunter and Killers are a pair of stunningly lame action rom-coms, released a few months apart in 2010, both focused on odd couple pairings who find themselves running for their lives when their dangerous jobs implode spectacularly. The Bounty Hunter casts Gerard Butler as a bounty hunter chasing down his ex-wife, while Killers sees Katherine Heigl falling for an assassin, in both cases serving up a staggeringly low-effort, aggressively lousy and formulaic rom-com. While many like to throw the Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz starring romp Night and Day in the mix too, that film's far too well crafted and yet memorable to stand alongside these bland, flavourless duds. Though both films were pilloried by critics, The Bounty Hunter was at least a solid commercial success, while Killers failed to turn much of a profit beyond its outrageously bloated $75 million budget. Number 2. Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down. Gerard Butler strikes again, this time starring in one of the two Die Hard in the White House movies released in 2013. Olympus Has Fallen casts Butler as a Secret Service agent attempting to protect the president following a terrorist attack on the White House, while White House Down casts Channing Tatum as a policeman who, during a tour of the White House, finds himself forced to protect the president from an insurgent terrorist force. Though Olympus Has Fallen is more serious tonally, while White House Down is more comedy-centric and higher budget, their shared concept is so hilariously similar that you'd be forgiven for mixing the two titles up. The only thing that really helps distinguish the two is the fact that Olympus Has Fallen was successful enough to get 2 sequels, while White House Down only barely recouped its ludicrously extravagant $150 million price tag. Number 1. Tombstone and Wyatt Earp. These dueling biopics of legendary lawman Wyatt Earp Earp were released almost 6 months apart to the very day, with Tombstone landing in December 1993 while Wyatt Earp hit cinemas in June 1994. Curiously, Wyatt Earp star Kevin Costner was initially involved with Tombstone, but when he disagreed with screenwriter Kevin Jarre about the movie's creative direction, Costner left to make his own movie with writer-director Lawrence Kasdan instead. Savagely, Costner even used his Hollywood clout to convince several studios not to distribute Tombstone in the hope of granting his own project greater leverage. It backfired hilariously though, as the more ensemble-centric Tombstone was received well by critics and performed modestly at the box office, while Wyatt Earp received mixed reviews, 5 Razzie nominations including Worst Actor for Costner, and tanked at the box office. A 190-minute runtime probably didn't help Wyatt Earp much, while the more breezily paced Tombstone remains a beloved cult classic to this day. For more casual viewers though, they're easily confused.